Like this, man. Hello, y'all. You already know where's my water at? You already know who it is. This is the one and only Damien Moody. I also go by Kashmere Majesty. Sometimes I go by Ray Ron Hood. And I'm back again with another live video. Excuse me. Where I'll be doing a live session called Kashmere Reads. And then Kashmere Reads, I'll be picking the book that I'm in the mood to read out of all the books I have. I'll be picking the book that I'm in the mood to read, and I'll try to get through the book the best way I can. From beginning to end. So, that being said, I'll be going back to Matriarch by Tina Knowles. Y'all know Beyonce and Michelle's mother. This is Matriarch by Tina Knowles. It's a memoir. It's Oprah Books Club 2025. I have a signed copy, signed by Miss Tina Knowles herself. And I got my copy from didn't I read this? I'll probably have to do this again. What the hell? Because I could have sworn I started reading this. Or something must have happened in the video. I don't know. I'll read it again. To my mother, Agnes the Ron Beyonce, who taught me by example. The very best parts of me came from you. To my daughters, who became my friends, Solange, Beyonce, Kelly, Angie. You are my crew, my tribe, my ride or dies. What would I do without you? To all the women out there who are the matriarchs of their families. And then there's a quote. It says, I'm the mother of the world. All these children are mine. Anybody let me love them, they're mine. Those that don't let me love them, then I love them anyhow. And that's from Willie Mae Ford Smith, the mother of gospel music. I dream a world. Shall I read the contents? You have a mother of three, prelude under the pecan tree, or pecan, however you want to pronounce it. Act 1, a daughter. Badass Tenny B, Galveston, Weiss Island, Holy Rosary, Claiming Our Power, Dreaming Within the Lines, Hellhounds on Our Trial, ladies and gentlemen, the Veltones, in Education and Liberation, Before I Let Go, Golden Hour, Return of the Prodigal Daughter, or Prodigal Daughter, sorry, Into the Undercurrent, The Persistence of Fate, Act 2, A Mother, Bloodline, Jazz Baby. It goes by fast. Order My Steps, Headliners, Parkwood, Those Girls, Lessons in Survival, Three Girls, Bread of Life, The Lost is the Fuel, Three Sisters, The Dolls, Mother of Invention, Naming Their Destiny, The Style It Takes, Johnny, New Beginnings, Tina is the Problem, 21st Century Women, Eyes Lifted to the Mountains, Joy and Pain, Contemporary American Landscapes, In My Fashion, Before and After, Frenchies, and Yo, what? Click what? I don't know. Uh, Click what? I don't know. The Distant Beat of Wings. Act 3, A Woman who becomes of a broken-hearted soul survivor, single in the city. Get your groove back, ready for love. Louisiana Roots, Tina's Angels, Capri Moon, Cover It with Crystals, Chosen Me, Reading the Margins. Then you have Finale, The Waves at Malibu, Photograph Captions and Acknowledgements. Then you have a family tree. I don't know if I want to read all of that. It just has a bunch of names. I apologize, y'all, if I end up pronouncing stuff. You already know in a lot of these videos, I be trying to read and I might pronounce stuff wrong. And then my Beyonce fans, my Tina Knowles fans, Matthew Knowles fans, Solange fans, and the Knowles family fans, you know that Beyonce and her family is part Creole. They're from Louisiana. Her dad's from Alabama. Um, so it might be some French language. Do do Creole people speak French? It just might be some different language that I might have trouble trying to pronounce throughout this book. So I'm gonna try my best. I'm gonna try my best, honey. Anyway, so this is prelude under the pecan tree, December 1955. Later, Dora will miss the sound of her mother calling her name. You can convince her of this when she is young, not while the voice is so plentiful in the air. She hears her mother say her name over and over, whether as a command to pay attention or a plea to know her worth, a sigh of maternal love, or a warning to be cautious. She cannot understand in those moments what she would someday trade to hear. I mean, what she would some way trade to hear that voice again. Teeny, I was 4 years old and in a dream, the kind where the sequence my mama had sewn into my Sunday dress became diamonds to be plucked and passed out to only the best friends, or one where we discovered the pleasure pier amusement park on Galveston Beach was running free rides with all the 5-cent sodas we could drink. That kind of dream, and now here was my mama calling me home just as it was getting good. Teeny, she said my name louder now. The accent of my mother's childhood Creole smoothed out, but still there. Agnes Deveron Beyonce had polished her soft voice into a pleasing shine on her way to the sixth grade. As far as school went for a black girl back where she grew up in Louisiana. Before I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was that our House was warm. In Galveston, well, in any poor house, when you went to bed in winter, all the heat was shut off. Old houses like ours didn't have heating anyway, just a space heater. Even there, on the island of the Gulf coast of Texas, the nights could get down to freezing. A warm house in the morning meant my mama was well. Ever since she had me, the last of her seven babies, at age 44, when my mother had been sickly, she would go into John Silly, a charity hospital in Galveston, at least twice a year with the heart almonds. with heart almonds that seemed tied to her constant worrying. Her health problems weren't made up or exaggerated. Rather, something scary that lurked in the background like a phantom waiting. I was always fearful of when they would come back. When my mother was home, she would get up before everybody else in the family around 5 in the morning to light the heater. If she was staying in the hospital, my father or one of us kids would have to get up and coax the heater to life. We never did it early enough like her. In the rest of the day, it would feel like we were catching up to the chill that stayed 2 steps ahead. But this day, I knew she was fine and we were warm. We had this little 2 bedroom home with 7 people living in it. My brother, my 3 older brothers, Larry, Butch, and Skip, slept in one bedroom, and my mom and dad built a partition wall in their bedroom to give my older sister Flo her own space. My bed was kind of floating out in the middle of that room. In that bed, too cozy to move, I heard my mother in the kitchen fixing breakfast. My parents were big on us all eating together. I could smell the homemade bread toasting in the stove, her pecan pancakes on the griddle, and the sausages my 3 brothers would wolf down before school. I closed that one eye again, then remembered it was now December. Each morning I woke up one day closer to Christmas, which also meant one day closer to my 5th birthday in January. That got me off the bed. The padded feet of my all in one pajama hitting the floor. I slid on those footy pajamas, pretending I was an ice skater on a worn wood floor to the kitchen. Everyone was already at the table. Of course, everyone always got up before me. My big sister Flo was 14 and all business getting ready for school. I was born on her 10th birthday, and her party was canceled when my mom went to the hospital to have me. She came into the world screwing my life up. Flo would say. Butch was swell, his good looks and gift of gab causing a stir. Wherever he went, boys already hated him as much as girls loved him. Quiet, brilliant Larry was 10, reading the newspaper that my mother also read front to back. Skip was making some corny joke to try to get our father laughing. A 9-year old who had already mastered dad what? Who already mastered dad jokes. It was tough to get a laugh out of my daddy. Miss Beyonce was so handsome that he had worked hard to seem gruff. I would always sit on his lap and try to hug on him. He might let you hug him a couple of times, and then you'd hear in his thick Creole voice, "Okay, that's enough. Get going. Go on now." He would, we would giggle at how uncomfortable our affection made him. Sounds like a lot of people, but our house was quiet. My parents were older, closing in on 50 years old, and already grandparents whose two of the kids had moved out long before I showed up. They were tired, and I was tiring. I'm pretty sure I had ADHD, but people didn't know what that was, so they just called you bad. My nickname at first was Dennis the Menace after the little comic about the mischievous boy that ran in a Galveston Daily News, but the name that stuck was Badass Teeny B. Teeny was short for Celestine Ann, which didn't suit me because people didn't say it right. You say it like Celestine, Celestine, huh? But I would get Celestine or worse, Celestine. Is it Celestine or Celestine? I'm sorry, I gotta figure out how you pronounce it. Yeah, I'm guessing it's Celestine. How the hell you pronounce this woman name? The B was for my last name, Beyonce, and the badass was for everything I did. I never hurt anyone. I just moved quicker than I could think. God had given my mother the most cautious woman I would ever know, a girl without fear. Or my mom might have said any kind of sense. So badass Teeny B was a good fit. My sisters and brothers didn't want to be bothered with a hyper 4-year old, and their real lives happened out of sight with their friends at school. When they left for the school day and my dad drove to work at the docks, it was only my mother and me. By the time they were all out the door, she had already been to the 7 o'clock mass that she went to every single day at Holy Rosary Catholic Church across the street. Then she started her seamstress work, sewing. That was her profession, and her mother was a seamstress before her. Hold on, y'all. I gotta give me some water. My mother had a gift for making the most beautiful masterpieces from remnants. When you went to the fabric store in Galveston, remnants were the ends of the expensive most of fabric. If it had once cost uh-huh, excuse me, something outlandish, maybe $6 a yard. Now it could be yours for 50 cents. There might have been a half of a yard left, certainly enough for a little girl's dress, and they would darn near just give the fabric to you. Mama was a beater, making teeny seed pearls and meticulously sewing each millimeter bead into a dress or jacket one by one to make a work of art. But before any of that work started in those early winter days like this one, we picked pecans. This was the harvest time for the pecan tree in our backyard, where my mother would go out every morning after breakfast to fill a bag. She would make pecan pralines or press them into the pastries or pies or hand them to the boys to crack and eat fresh to keep them busy and fed. We always had pecans, and I don't know what I realized. I mean, I, uh, uh, excuse me, and I don't know when I realized it was because they were free. Come on, Teeny, Mama said, grabbing a large brown burlap bag to head out to the yard. I followed in my pajamas outside, attempting cartwheels. Attempting cartwheels behind her. The pecan tree was huge, beautiful with a round canopy of branches. I skipped around its scaly gray-brown trunk, pretending to have a ribbon as I stretched out the opening lines of maybe by the chantels. Maybe if I cry every night, you'll come back to me. Whirling, I looked up at the tree's 30 inches, strong enough to hold even the bigger boys. My brother Larry had built a bench high in the inches, and the plank of wood was my throne, the yard my kingdom, and my mother our queenly matriarch. Excuse me. My mother saw me looking up and she knew I was about to climb, but she needed me on the ground where the pecans were. Earlier in the season, she might need to send the boys all out with a stick to shake the tree for the avalanche pecans to collect, but now they fell freely. You just had to beat the birds to them. To keep me grounded, she told me stories from our family history. Now, Tinny, she would say, lassoing my focus before launching into some tale about my grandmother or a story from early in her marriage to my daddy. My nose so damn stuffy. It's, as she talked, I picked up pecans. All the while, I did somersaults and cartwheels or spun in place until I fell back, holding on to the earth that might throw me off. But I listened. I listened to every single word my mother told me. These people, my ancestors, and my parents when they were young, all were characters in a long drama that I was now a part of. Their struggles were not mine, but their lessons could be. It was my inheritance. These stories that people had done their best to erase or degrade to keep us from passing them down so that we wouldn't know our history in ourselves, just like she did in her work as a seamstress. My mother could take the stories of lives that might have been discarded or lost, some precious scrap of information, and weave it into a tapestry of her storytelling as something precious and unique. Sometimes all we had were names, but even names held multitudes. And mother to daughter, each had kept a word going. We would not be lost. I could ask my mother anything under the pecan tree, and that December morning I did have a question. The night before, I sat at the kitchen table next to Larry, and he wrote his name at the top of his homework. I said I wanted to practice my own name, so he let me borrow his pencil and said each letter for me. When we got to my last name, Larry thought for a second. Yours is different, Teeny, he said. He reminded me that all of us kids had different spellings of our parents' last name. Beyonce, there was Beyonce, Beyonce, and mine, Beyonce. Beyonce, Beyonce, and mine, Beyonce. Well, I pronounce it differently. I don't know if they all are supposed to be Beyonce, but one is Beyince, Boyance, and Beyonce, Beyonce. Kind of like her daughter Beyonce's name. Now in the yard, I placed my hands on the ground and tried to do a handstand, leaning against a tree as I formed the question, Mama, our names, I said, looking at her upside down as she bent to the grass. You know, it's all those different spellings. I talked as if maybe she had never noticed, as if she'd gone to the store and carelessly brought home a mismatched set of last names. That's what they put on your birth certificate, my mother said, focusing on the pecans. I tumbled over, kicking my feet in the air as if that would slow my fall. Why didn't you make them fix it? I said, sitting up again, fight and say it's not right. I did one time, my mama said, looking at me the first time. So what happened? I pressed stern L. I picked up a pecan and wasn't sure I even wanted to give it to her to put in the bag. I was told, be happy that you're getting a birth certificate because at one time black people didn't even get birth certificates. There was hurt in my mother's voice, and she picked up pecans quicker as if they might run off. What's a birth? I already forgotten the word. Certificate, Teeny, she said. It says what your name is. Well, I wanted to change my name, I said. I held that pecan tight between my thumb and forefinger. You can't change your name, she said. Your name is beautiful. Celestine and Beyonce. It was music when my mother said it, but I wouldn't budge. I have this name, I said. Nobody can say Celestine. I mimicked the ugly zombie voice pronunciation I often heard. Celestine. She laughed, coming closer to me with the bed, still keeping the hand low to the ground for peeking. What would you rather name? What What would you rather your name be? Something easy, I said, finally dropping the pecan in the bed. Plain, Linda Smith. You are Celestine, she said, smiling. She squatted to push the hair off my face and pull leaves off my pajama legs, like my sister and my grandmother. Hold on, where's the, I got pee. My mother's sister had died as a baby, and she was named for her grandmother, my great grandmother, Celestine Josephine Lacey, who had lived to be almost 100, gone long before my mother gave me their name. She was very pretty, my mother said, like you. She caught herself and stood up as she added her usual line. But pretty is as pretty does, Teeny. And, and there under the pecan tree, as she did countless times, that day my mother told me stories of the mothers and daughters that went before me. The house of Dorian, her maiden name, Metro line, as worthy as memorization as the bloodlines of the mythological Greek gods I will learn later. I am the daughter of Agnes, who was Adilla's daughter, who was Celestine, who was Rosaline. My mom did not have the details found in the records of modern historians and, and genealogists. She had what had been passed down to her, which was above all the knowledge that these mothers held on to their daughters against all odds. Rosalie, born around 1800, had been enslaved all her life in Louisiana when she had her daughter Celestine on a June one day in 1816. My mother told me her great grandmother Rosalie called her Celestine time, pronouncing her nickname just like mine. At a time when black families were considered property and routinely ripped apart, they managed to stay together. There was a close call when the newly widowed woman who enslaved the mother and daughter in Louisiana said she was scaling down and only needed 6 out of the 29 people she held in captivity and forced labor. The rest would be farmed out for her relatives, their fates unknown. But Rosalie held on to her time, and they were part of that six that stayed. So son became a mother herself as a teenager, giving birth to two sons. Her children's biological father was the widow's white grandson, Eloy Rene Broussard, who was about 2 years older than Celestine. And then in 1853, the widow who had enslaved and died, and all of her property was presented for public auction. Three generations of my family, Rosalie, Celestine, and her two children, were placed on the block to be sold individually. I typed those words, say them aloud, and I feel that fear and rage in my blood, the trauma passed down through my DNA. Lloyd Rosalie Broussard came forward at the auction. A receipt shows he paid 1,705 and 1,705 of dollars in cash for his sister and her two children, his children. A relative, a relative of the widow put down money for Rosalie's life, and she was taken from her daughter and grandchildren. I don't know if they ever saw each other again. Celestine and the children moved into Eloy's house, where he had a white wife and his three daughters. He and Celestine would have 10 more children, and she would live in his house for 50 years. She named her first daughter Rosalie after the mother taken from her, and then she had Adelia, my mother's mother. And Lori was my great grandmother with all its awful complexity. That is who he was. And Lord acknowledged paternity of all of his children with Celestine and donated a small bit of land in livestock to her before his death in 1904. The way it's been presented to me, Lloyd acknowledging that he was the father of her children gave time some degree of security even before the Civil War. There were a portrait commissioned of her at some point, which I told, which I'm told speaks to her standing. I know it shows her beauty, but under the pecan tree, what mattered was this: Celestine was enslaved, and she became free, and she got her kids free. They stayed together. My nose is irritating. These stories under the pecan tree nourished my soul, and part of that was my mother making sure that I knew what an honor it was to be black. Once I was wearing a T-shirt that read 100% black while I was out buying groceries. You better take that off. A black man I was walking by said, peppering the insult with a certain familiarity to soften the blow. You're no 100%. I knew this was about my skin being like stopping in my tracks. I turned to him, brother. I said, "I'm the blackest woman you'll ever meet." From my first breath, I was so shown an embrace into knowing that it is an honor to be a black person. My mother saw to that, making sure I carried all these mothers with me. Rosalie, who had Celestine, who had Adelia, who had Agnes, who had me, who had Beyonce and Solange. This is not simply about a bloodline. I watched my mama mother children who were not hers by birth. I had mother children like my daughters Kelly and Angie, who are as much my daughters as if I carried them. All these had, we all have this power to be matriarchs, to be women of the sacred practice of nurturing, guiding, protecting, foreseeing, and remembering. The matriarch's wisdom is ancient, for she is filled with the most enduring, ferocious love. Oh, my nose is stuffy. When my older daughter was born, my mother had just died, and it was inconceivable to me that she would not be there to show me how to be a mother. I wanted my mother to be the one to tell my daughter these stories of all the mothers and overcame that overcame incredible odds to be with each other. My firstborn daughter looks so much like my mom, more like her than me. But that is genetics. How would I pass on our spirit, that that unspoken knowing, the pride of our history? So my first gift to my daughter would be my name, Beyonce. It didn't matter how it was spelled when it was given to me. It was our name, our history, the most valuable possession I had, and it was now mine to give. I kept the word going. All right, y'all. So I tried my best to get through that. I might mispronounce stuff. I apologize, but once again, that was Tina Knowles' book Matriarch, which is a memoir, a brand new memoir. Y'all can like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, be notified, share my videos with your friends and family. And if you want to be a real supporter and you support my channel, you like what I do, please feel free to donate to my Cash App. My Cash App is Kashmere Majesty 26. That is KASHMEREMAJESTY 26. Please let me know if you are serious. You don't have to, but it's just something that I'm doing for my loyal subscribers. If you want, feel free to donate to my Cash App and let me know what you want to see. Once I know that you're real and you're a real supporter and you have donated, I will give you a special shout out in my next video once I've got the payment. And like I said, you can just let me know what you want to see me do, or if you just choose to support, you'll still get your shout out.